Will the United States war against Iran finish up in 2 to 3 weeks, as President Donald Trump has indicated recently? That is the question for today's video. And so it is quite interesting that we continue to get these narratives about these short timelines for the end of the war. First, we had a possible weekend operation, which was to eliminate the supreme leader and to have their government collapse, to have a new leadership come in with the help of some unknown individuals within Iran, and the United States would establish diplomatic relations with this new group of individuals, and everything would be great in the world. Well, that weekend came and went, and now we are 30 days in, more than 30 days in to this conflict, and we see no sign of anything ending anytime soon. So anyway, this new timeline has been given, 2 to 3 weeks, and of course Pete Hegseth said in his news conference yesterday that the armed forces of the United States are not beholden to any set timeline. They set their goals, they make their decisions, and you will know when you will know, basically. So why President Trump continues to give these timelines, quite amazing, but many people believe them, which is even more amazing. And we'll get into why this timeline is fictitious or not in my report, so let's get right into it. But first, these reports that come out from the White House have an extremely calming effect on the crude oil market. So here we have the crude oil price hovering around $100, as well as Brent. And Brent has come down quite a bit. There was about a $10 gap between crude oil and Brent, and now they're basically about the same, which is pretty amazing. You can see that the price hike happened, right at the beginning of March. See February 28th, when this attack first started. You can see the leap up in oil prices, and many say that the prices will continue to go up. But this isn't the price that, so to speak, tankers, oil tankers, and container ships pay at the pump, so to speak. This is paper oil. These are paper trades, and they don't reflect actually what people are paying. So what people are paying is much higher, and of course that eventually will come around to affect everyone in the price of gasoline, which I see is already over $4 as an average in the United States. So that continues to go up. And we see that the shipping industry is quite hopeful that this conflict will end soon. And how do I know that? By taking a look at the Strait of Hormuz. And so I just refresh this map here and see all the ships that are waiting either to enter the strait or to leave the strait. So there's now getting a mass of ships waiting at either end of the Strait of Hormuz, and just a trickle of ships coming in and out. Of course, these are ships that represent countries that are friendly to Iran. Going probably to, there was a list recently of countries that had made arrangements with Iran, and so those countries have not experienced any cutoff in their oil supplies. Now, as far as gas supplies, that is been affected by the attack on the Qatar natural gas facility. So anyway, let's take a look at more indications of why this timeline given by President Trump is more than likely fictitious. We have here a couple of TruthSocial posts which came out asking for You know that Iran has been begging for a ceasefire, and the United States will give a ceasefire when the Strait of Hormuz is open. Meanwhile, Iran said that they have not asked for any ceasefire and it will not happen anytime soon. So we have another message here from President Trump that is from the 30th and talking about opening back up the Strait of Hormuz. And if not, Iran will be blown to kingdom come. You know, their electrical plants, their oil wells, Karg Island, their desalinization plants. And I don't know if President Trump understands that Iran only really receives 2% of its water from desalinization plants, which is quite a difference from the petro monarchies that many are heavily dependent on desalinization, since they already used up the water in the pumps and the wells a long time ago. So President Trump continues to hold this line that the key point here is the Hormuz Strait and the key to resolving everything. So then he invited countries that wanted to get their oil to come and get it. And if they wanted it, I mean, all they had to do is come and take it. You know, just easy peasy. And of course, these countries know that once they get over there, they will be pulled into this whole war effort. But the biggest problem with the United States of exiting the conflict and, so to speak, removing their forces from the area, stopping their attacks, is that they can't remove themselves from the area because they're basically entrenched in all of these countries between air bases, naval facilities, outposts, and radar facilities. So they are completely integrated into these petro-monarchies, into still a strong presence in Iraq. I believe the NATO forces were pulling out in Saudi Arabia and in Jordan. So and if we go to what the United States has in these areas, in Bahrain, they have the headquarters of the Navy's 5th Fleet. So a U.S. Navy has its headquarters in a foreign country. That seems to me like getting back to the status quo between the United States and Iran won't be easy and won't be anytime soon. And you know, you can, I'll just show stop on this content here briefly in case you want to pause the video and take a look at that. But there was a $600 million expansion in 2010, which doubled the size of the base. So the United States, if it has done anything, it has expanded its presence here in this area. This is a key area. The United States wanted to control it. And of course, Iran was the obstacle. So is this war all about oil? One could ask the question. There's so much going on in each one of these, some of these really small petro-monarchies. You know, basically, Bahrain is basically an island. And we have Qatar, also very small. And of that small area, we have a 24-hectare U.S. air base, the Al Udeid Air Base. And there's about 10,000 troops stationed there. And there's more going on here in Qatar. So plenty going on. How is the United States going to get back to business as usual, as the status quo, back to peaceful, friendly relationship with Iran, which is right across the coast from these petro-monarchies. So I don't see this conflict just stopping on a dime anytime soon. We have Kuwait, again, 2 bases, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. We have the Al Dhafra Air Base and the Jebel Ali Port, which is the U.S. Navy's largest port of call in the Middle East. We have Iraq, which still has quite a strong U.S. presence. So we have the Erbil Air Base, which has been under attack from Iraqi forces and from Iranian drones and missiles. So many of the NATO countries pulled their forces out because it was dangerous for them, and they didn't really have any idea what this conflict was about, what the goals were, how soon it would be achieved, and there was no reason for them to keep their forces in danger. So the United States is on its own there, basically at Erbil, and the United States has the largest embassy in the world is in Baghdad. In the green zone, the United States basically turned over the green zone checkpoints to Iraqi officials, but of course under the watchful supervision of the U.S. troops. So again, the United States doesn't look like it's interested in pulling out of this area anytime soon. And so how is this conflict with Iran supposed to finish in 2 or 3 weeks? We have more what's going on in Saudi Arabia, very important air bases and operations. There's the U.S. Navy base in Yanbu, and of course Yanbu is the western endpoint of the east-west oil pipeline, and so that's where Saudi Arabia is loading petroleum onto ships, so that they avoid the Persian Gulf, and they're achieving somewhere between 4 and 7 million barrels a day. In Jordan, we have the air base, and of course they're heavily involved whenever Iran sends a missile towards Israel. They scramble jets to try to shoot these missiles down. But besides all these bases, all this U.S. presence, making it basically impossible for the U.S. to return to business as usual with Iran, we have more troops heading in this general direction. The U.S. George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group consists of about 6,000 sailors, so also the 82nd Airborne, which I believe is coming from Fort Bragg over to the Middle East. There's other soldiers coming over. So the United States is loading up its, an invasion force. So why would it try to finish this up in 2 to 3 weeks if they're going to invade? This is not going to be a short-term matter. It will go on for quite a while. So because all these signals seem to be contradictory, with lots of dissatisfaction at home, President Trump is going to address the nation this evening. So it looks like 9 p.m. would be Eastern time. And his polling numbers are shockingly low. He's starting to get into George W. Bush numbers of being unpopular and being untrustworthy. So he's going to try to get the nation behind him on these operations. So before his national address, he put out the results of this poll from McLaughlin and Associates, showing that practically 9 out of 10 Americans approve of removing the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei from power. And so anyway, here's some additional information about Yanbu. You're welcome to pause. But the important thing to see here from 2021 is that there was already this build-up towards confronting Iran, talking about the ballistic missiles, and also this other article from 2021, which basically said that there was the possibility of a reset with the arrival of Biden, but rather than resetting with Iran, he doubled down on the military presence. So anyway, going back here to this map of the, there we go, going back to this map, I think the important thing to remember is that if the United States is going to be finishing up this operation in 2 to 3 weeks, they would be drawing down forces. They're increasing forces. The possibility of a land invasion, land incursion is growing stronger and stronger. We don't know what forces are being brought over outside of the public knowledge, but right now there should be a force of about 50,000, and that could go up to 100,000 eventually. That may be part of what President Trump will speak about today, about trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and about trying to take some islands. Many people have recommended to President Trump that he try not to do that because this is suicide for the troops. They're not going to be able to support them once they're on the ground. They're not going to be able to provide them with supplies. So anyway, we will find out more about what President Trump wants to do. But the fact that we keep on getting these narratives, a couple of days, couple of weeks, just a few more weeks, this is stringing along the country, and the people are kind of getting fed up with it. And if you go to the pump, you see the gas over $4 a gallon. I think in Los Angeles, diesel is over $8. So people will get fed up with this very fast if there isn't some sense of what we're doing, why we're doing it, what's the end game, and when we will be finished, and when will things be back to normal. So if we're just going to get more of the same, I think that there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction in the country, and this will bode very poorly for President Trump in the proximate elections. So I'll leave it at that. You're welcome to comment below if you like. What do you think is President Trump's plan? Is he going to be invading soon? Is this just more kicking the can down the road? And but I think most people are pretty sure that they don't like gas that is so expensive, and the real possibility of a return of inflation and the economic impact that would make in this country. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, and thank you for joining me today for the Rowell Report. If you'd like this report, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you back for future reports. Take care. Bye-bye.